I was born in Hartford City, Indiana, and then immediately came back to Huron. And my name is Robert P. King, and I lived at Huron all my life. Grew up there. Went to grade school at Grant School and went to high school in Huron. Graduated there before I went into the service. And at the time I was inducted, I'd been over in Minnesota doing harvest work. I'd been picking corn over there and came back and went right into the Guards at that time, signed up and went in. And we left there in 1941. Went down to Claiborne by train and did maneuvers all summer in Louisiana. And I can't remember what month it was. It must have been in September. They got our convoy all together and we went across the states, Mississippi and Alabama and the corner of Florida, up through the Carolinas, and did maneuvers in North Carolina. And in the meantime, while I was there, Turkelson and Lefty Hale and myself went to Trenton, New Jersey, and did roller skating, and then come back, and then we went to the Empire State Building. We were up on top of the roof of that, and I got pictures of us up there. And then we came back to when we got done with the Carolinas, our maneuvers in Carolina, we went by convoy back across all those states to Claiborne again. By that time it was December, and after December 7th, and we began loading the trucks onto the flat cars, and then they took us from there up to St. Louis by train, and it was colder than cold. It must have been 20 below all the way across there to Indiana, and they had to stop and thaw out all the train lines, and we were there probably a day. They got that all thawed out again, then took off and went to Fort Dix. And we were at Fort Dix in January sometime. And they had us all go in and line us up to get passports. I don't know what that was all about, because we never did use any passports. And it was colder than cold at Fort Dix. 5-man tents, and we had stoves in there, and part of the tents the stoves worked and part of them they didn't. And we had ours working good in our tent, but when we went to get our passports, we come back and somebody stole our stove. And we had to get another stove, and had quite a time getting it lit up and get it going again. And then we shipped out of there and went to New York, and loaded on board the USS American Legion. A lot of sailors, I think that was their first trip, because they all seemed like kids to me. And we took off on the USS American Legion. And a lot of the guys got seasick. And they'd come up and we'd go through the mess line, and some of them never stopped. They'd get their tray full and come to the end of the line and dump it right in the garbage can and keep on going. But that never bothered me. The seasickness never bothered me. So I did get to eat every time. But the ship was a mess as far as all of the holes. The bathrooms was about 8 inches deep in slop, and it was a mess. And we got to Nova Scotia, and our ship broke down on the way. I never did hear what was really wrong with it. And always on board the ship at Nova Scotia, they unloaded us every day down a big rope ladder, and it was about 3 stories from the top of the ship down to the dock. And my first time down, we had full field pack on, rifle on our shoulder, and coming back up, I was the last one coming up that rope ladder. And of course, when you're the last one, the rope ladder's tipping underneath the ship. Well, I didn't know whether I was ever going to make it back up that ladder. But they did that for a couple of weeks, but I learned to be first one up the ladder after that. I never was last. And after 2 weeks, they must have repaired it enough so they could take us back to New York City, unloaded us and shipped us up to Camp Edwards, Massachusetts by train. And we were there, we must have been there a couple of months, I'm not sure how many. And they shipped us back out of there by train back down to New York City, and we loaded on board the USS New Mexico. It was a Caribbean ship, a fancy ship, all nice woodwork inside, but by the time we got done, the rifles scraping the walls, it was a mess. And we were in a big convoy again, and they had cruisers and destroyers on both sides of us. It was a huge convoy. We went back up to Nova Scotia and put out from there across the North Atlantic. And it was a cold trip, wintertime. And we landed at, well, on the way there was a big Dutch ship right beside us, a big black one. And we noticed there were tanks loaded on top of it. We were about halfway across, and there was a terrible explosion in the night. They wouldn't let us come topside on the USS New Mexico. We got up the next morning, though, and that big Dutch ship wasn't there anymore. I don't know. They must have sunk that thing.